Welcome to our YouTube channel, Raja Goga Sikata, 1719. Today we are going to talk about the Albert Einstein regarding. In this video, we will explore 1. Birth and family. 2. Schooling challenges. 3. Swiss years and polytechnic. 4. Life as a patent clerk. 5. The 4 groundbreaking papers. 6. Academic recognition. 7. General theory of relativity. 8. Marriages and family. 9. Humanism, pacifism, and politics. 10. Fleeing Nazi Germany. 11. Einstein, the bomb. 12. Unified field theory. 13. Life in Princeton. 14. Cultural icon. 15. Death and immortality. 16. Impact on science and humanity. We'll discuss all of this in this video. So make sure to watch it till the end and learn something new about Albert Einstein. Let's begin the amazing journey of Albert Einstein regarding segment Birth and Family. Albert Einstein was born on March 14th, 1879 in the city of Ulm, in the Kingdom of Württemberg, in what was then the German Empire. He came into the world in a modest apartment on Bahnhofstrasse, just a short walk from the river Danube. He was the first child of Hermann Einstein and Pauline Koch, a middle-class, secular Jewish couple. His father, Hermann, was a salesman and later became an engineer. He co-founded an electrical company that specialized in direct current, DC, lighting installations. Pauline, Albert's mother, was a strong, intelligent woman who had a deep passion for music and played the piano skillfully. From birth, Albert was not like other babies. His mother once remarked that his head was unusually large and misshapen, a concern that quickly faded as he grew into a healthy child. In fact, his head shape and silence as a toddler led some to wonder if he had a learning disability. But in time, Albert's extraordinary mind would speak louder than any early doubts. 2 years after Albert's birth, the Einstein family welcomed a daughter, Maria, whom they affectionately called Maya. She and Albert developed a very close bond that lasted their entire lives. The family soon moved from Ulm to Munich, where Hermann and his brother Jakob founded an electrical engineering company. It was in Munich that Albert would spend most of his early childhood. Although his family wasn't wealthy, they lived comfortably, supported by the growing demand for electrical innovation. Albert's early environment was a blend of science and art. While his father and uncle discussed electricity and engineering, his mother surrounded him with music and discipline. This unique combination, technical rigor and creative expression, would shape Einstein's identity in profound ways. Segment Schooling Challenges. Albert Einstein's early education began in Munich, where he attended a Catholic elementary school called the Peterschule, even though he came from a Jewish family. There, young Albert showed early signs of brilliance, especially in mathematics, but the rigid structure of the Prussian school system did not suit him. He was a quiet, introverted child who hated rote learning. The strict discipline, the authoritarian teachers, the memorization of meaningless facts, none of it aligned with his curious and questioning mind. He once said, "The teachers at the school appeared to me as sergeants, and the students as their subordinates." Einstein's rebellious attitude often got him into trouble. Teachers complained that he was slow, disobedient, and unwilling to conform. One teacher even told him that he would never amount to anything. Ironically, Albert wasn't a poor student, but he was selective. He loved math, geometry, and physics, but ignored other subjects like languages and history unless they sparked his interest. At the age of 10, Einstein was introduced to a family friend named Max Talmud, a medical student who often came over for dinner. Talmud began bringing books for Albert, including works on philosophy, science, and mathematics. By the age of 12, Einstein was self-studying Euclidean geometry, and by 14, he had mastered calculus far ahead of most students his age. But as his interest in science grew, his relationship with school worsened. At age 15, when his father's business failed and the family moved to Italy, Albert stayed behind to finish school. But he couldn't bear the loneliness or the system any longer. Within a few months, he dropped out without a diploma. He wrote a letter to the school, citing mental exhaustion, and walked out of the gates of the Luitpold Gymnasium for the last time. It was a bold and risky move, but Albert Einstein was never one to follow the rules. The only thing that interferes with my learning is my education. Albert Einstein. Eventually, he would apply to the Swiss Federal Polytechnic in Zurich. Though he failed the general entrance exam, especially in French, literature, and botany, his math and physics scores were exceptional. The school recognized his potential and admitted him a year later, after completing secondary school in Aarau, Switzerland. That year in Aarau was crucial. The liberal teaching style, the freedom to ask questions, the focus on critical thinking, it reignited his passion. It was there that Einstein first imagined a scenario that would later revolutionize science. What if you could ride alongside a beam of light? Though the education system tried to shape him, Einstein ultimately shaped himself. He refused to be molded by convention and instead followed a deeper inner voice, a voice that asked not, "What should I learn?" but "Why does the universe work the way it does?" Segment: Swiss years and the Polytechnic. After leaving the rigid school system of Germany, Albert Einstein found a fresh start in Switzerland, a country known for its liberal values and progressive education system. At just 16 years old, Einstein enrolled at the cantonal school in Aarau, a small town near Zurich. This experience was unlike anything he had ever known. The school emphasized open discussions, individual thinking, and student-teacher respect, all the things young Einstein had craved. Here, he found peace. Here, he thrived. One night in Aarau, he had a thought experiment that would shape his destiny. He imagined riding alongside a beam of light, moving at the speed of light. What would he see? Would the wave freeze? Would time stop? This mental image was the seed of a revolution in physics, though it would take another decade to fully bloom. In 1896, after completing his schooling in Aarau, Einstein enrolled at the Swiss Federal Polytechnic Institute in Zurich, now known as ETH Zurich. He was only 17 years old, and though the school was prestigious, Einstein was admitted with special permission thanks to his outstanding scores in mathematics and physics. At the Polytechnic, Einstein studied under several brilliant minds, but he didn't always get along with his professors. He often skipped classes, preferring to study independently devouring works by Maxwell, Newton, and Boltzmann on his own time. One of his most influential teachers was Heinrich Weber, but Einstein quickly grew frustrated with Weber's outdated teaching methods. Einstein once said, "He only teaches what's already known. I want to understand what is still unknown. I am neither clever nor especially gifted. I am only very, very curious." During this time, Einstein met Mileva Maric, the only woman in his physics class. She was a brilliant Serbian student, ambitious and highly intelligent. The two developed a strong intellectual bond, and soon a romantic one as well. Einstein was deeply influenced by Mileva's mind. They exchanged letters filled with equations, ideas, and dreams of a shared future in science. Despite their bond, the relationship would later be tested by hardship, distance, and social pressures. Though Einstein excelled in his scientific subjects, he had trouble with authority, often clashing with professors. As a result, he was denied a teaching assistant position after graduation in 1900, a blow to his career ambitions. With no job, no references, and few connections, Einstein entered a period of personal struggle. He spent 2 years drifting tutoring students, applying for every position he could find and facing rejection after rejection. But even in this difficult time, Einstein refused to give up. He believed in the power of ideas. He believed that the universe could be understood if only one asked the right questions. Then, in 1902, a lifeline appeared. Einstein secured a job as a technical expert at the Swiss Patent Office in Bern. It was not a glamorous position, but it gave him stability and, most importantly, time to think. Einstein would later say that the monotony of the patent office allowed his mind to roam freely, to challenge the rules of Newtonian mechanics, and to imagine what the universe looked like when seen through the eyes of light itself. It was in this quiet corner of bureaucracy, far from the world's scientific centers, that Einstein would soon spark a revolution in physics, a revolution that began not in a lab, but in the boundless space of his imagination. Segment Life as a Patent Clerk. In 1902, after months of unemployment and rejection, Albert Einstein finally secured a modest job at the Swiss Patent Office in Bern, thanks to a friend's recommendation. It was a turning point not in prestige, but in possibility. The official title, Technical Expert, 3rd Class. His salary was small, his rank lower than his qualifications deserved, but the job offered him something far more valuable than money time to think. At the patent office, Einstein reviewed applications for electrical devices, electromagnetic machines, and mechanical contraptions. Day after day, he analyzed inventions, checking them for originality and practicality. The work was repetitive, yet stimulating in its own way. Einstein later called it a worldly cloister, a quiet, structured place where he could work during the day and dream at night. A calm and modest life brings more happiness than the pursuit of success, combined with constant restlessness. Despite the dry nature of the job, Einstein didn't waste a single moment. Between shifts and after hours, he would retreat into his imagination. He often carried a notebook with him, scribbling thoughts about the nature of light, space, and time. The atmosphere of the patent office offered a kind of intellectual solitude. He had no lab, no team, no scientific community to debate with, only a few close friends like Michel Besseau, a colleague and confidant, with whom he often shared his wildest ideas. Together, they would discuss physics during coffee breaks, sometimes walking the streets of Bern late into the night. Einstein once said, "I could not have asked for a better sounding board than Besseau." The birth of revolutionary thought. It was in this period, away from academia, away from expectations, that Einstein's greatest ideas began to form. Between 1902 and 1905, he began crafting the theories that would change the course of science forever. And all the while, he kept his day job, reading about transformers and motors by day, and questioning the nature of the universe by night. Creativity is intelligence having fun. Einstein's experience at the patent office also taught him to think clearly and simply to strip down ideas to their core essentials. This clarity of thought would later define his unique scientific style, elegant, logical, and profoundly insightful. His bosses at the patent office had no idea that the young man, quietly reading technical documents, was preparing to redefine physics. To them, he was efficient, punctual, and slightly odd, often scribbling in the margins of applications, lost in thought. The irony of obscurity. Ironically, at the very moment when Einstein began formulating the idea behind special relativity, quantum theory, and mass energy equivalence, he remained unknown to the scientific world. No university would hire him. No journals sought his opinion. He was just a name on a list of civil servants until he started to publish. The Swiss Patent Office, small, ordinary, and bureaucratic, had unknowingly given birth to a scientific revolution, and the quiet clerk, working behind its walls, would soon become the most celebrated scientist on Earth. In the stillness of that government office, Albert Einstein had been building a new universe. The silence of obscurity had given birth to the sound of genius. Segment: The four groundbreaking papers of 1905, Einstein's miracle year. In 1905, while still working as a low-level patent clerk in Bern, Albert Einstein, unknown, unrecognized, and unsupported, published 4 scientific papers that would change the world. Each paper addressed a fundamental problem in physics. Together, they redefined our understanding of reality, matter, motion, time, energy, and even light itself. Later called Einstein's Annus Mirabilis, the miracle year 1905 wasn't just a turning point in Einstein's life. It was the dawn of a new scientific era. Paper 1, The Photoelectric Effect, published March 1905. At the time, physicists believed that light behaved purely as a wave, but experiments showed a strange effect. When light hit certain metals, it knocked electrons loose. Strangely, dim blue light could do this, but bright red light could not. Einstein proposed a radical explanation. Light wasn't just a wave. It came in tiny packets of energy, what we now call photons. This idea would launch quantum physics, the study of matter and energy at the smallest scales. It seemed as though one could cast off all classical physics and leap into the unknown. Though many scientists initially dismissed it, this paper later earned Einstein the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1921. Paper 2, Brownian Motion, published May 1905. For centuries, some still doubted whether atoms and molecules were real. Einstein provided the proof. He mathematically described Brownian motion, the seemingly random movement of particles suspended in a liquid as the result of countless invisible collisions with molecules. Einstein's calculations made it possible to measure the size of atoms and determine Avogadro's number, confirming the atomic theory of matter. It was a giant leap in statistical physics and a final blow to the idea that matter was smooth and continuous. Paper 3, Special Theory of Relativity, published June 1905. For 200 years, Isaac Newton's view of space and time had ruled science, absolute, unchanging, universal. But Einstein thought differently. He proposed two simple postulates. One, the laws of physics are the same for all non-accelerating observers. Two, the speed of light is constant in all frames of reference. From these ideas came shocking conclusions. Time is not absolute. Length can contract. Mass increases with speed, and simultaneity is relative. The universe was no longer a static stage. It was a flexible fabric shaped by motion and perspective. Time and space are modes by which we think, not conditions in which we live. Special relativity replaced certainty with relativity and shattered humanity's deepest assumptions about reality. Paper 4, Mass-Energy Equivalence, EMC2, published September 1905. In a follow-up to his relativity paper, Einstein introduced the most famous equation in history, EMC2. This elegant formula stated that energy and mass are two forms of the same thing. A tiny bit of matter contains an enormous amount of energy. The equation would later form the theoretical foundation of nuclear power, atomic bombs, and modern particle physics. Mass tells space how to curve. Space tells mass how to move. But in 1905, Einstein saw only the beauty of the math, not the bomb it would one day fuel. Aftermath of the miracle year. Despite the groundbreaking nature of these papers, Einstein remained in his job at the patent office, still unknown to the world. It would take years before universities recognized his genius. But in time, scientists began to realize the quiet patent clerk had done what most believed was impossible. He had redrawn the laws of nature with only a notebook and a mind unchained by convention. Atoms, light, time, energy. In just 12 months, one man rewrote the language of the universe. And yet, Einstein was only getting started. Segment, Academic Recognition, Albert Einstein, 1906-1914. By 1906, Albert Einstein had authored 4 revolutionary papers, yet he remained a third-class patent clerk in Bern. No title, no lab, no lectures. But slowly, the scientific world began to take notice. The scientific world reacts. Einstein's 1905 papers spread quietly at first, but among physicists, his name was becoming impossible to ignore. The boldness of his ideas the clarity of his mathematics, they struck a chord in a world hungry for answers. In 1908, Einstein was finally recognized by the academic community. He was offered a position as Privatdozent, or unsalaried lecturer, at the University of Bern. For the first time, he could lecture on his theories. Students were skeptical, so were professors, but those who stayed quickly realized they were listening to a man unlike any other. First university positions, 1909-1911. In 1909, Einstein left the patent office behind forever. He was appointed associate professor at the University of Zurich, a turning point in both his career and personal identity. He was no longer a rogue outsider. He was now part of the academic elite. I was suddenly lifted out of obscurity. It was overwhelming, and yet it changed nothing inside me. In the classroom, he was passionate but unconventional, often straying from the syllabus, challenging students to think freely, not memorize facts. Later in 1911, he accepted a position at Charles University in Prague, becoming a full professor. Here, Einstein reconnected with a deeper mystery gravity. His mind turned towards something bigger than special relativity, a new theory of gravitation, one that would eventually rewrite Newton's law. But the job in Prague, though prestigious, felt distant and confining. Einstein missed the creative freedom of Zurich, and so, in 1912, he returned. Zurich again, and a return to curved space. Back at the ETH Zurich, Einstein collaborated with his old classmate, Marcel Grossmann, a mathematician. With Grossmann's help, he began exploring a radical idea. What if space and time themselves were curved by the presence of matter? It was the seed of what would become the general theory of relativity, but at this point, it was still just a wild idea. Together, they navigated the complex world of Riemannian geometry, the mathematics required to describe curved space. Einstein had the vision. Grossmann had the tools. Berlin and the Prussian Academy, 1914. In 1914, at the age of 35, Einstein was invited to join the Prussian Academy of Sciences in Berlin, one of the most prestigious scientific institutions in the world. He was offered a professorship at the University of Berlin, and more importantly, complete freedom from teaching duties. The only obligation was to think, and I accepted gladly. This was the opportunity Einstein had long awaited. In Berlin, he would have unlimited time for research and direct access to Europe's greatest minds, including physicist Max Planck, who had supported Einstein's work from the beginning. Einstein's fame was growing. His lectures were well attended, his papers widely read, and his name, once unknown, was now whispered in academic halls across Europe. But he remained modest, uninterested in status or wealth. His focus was singular: to solve the riddle of gravity. Struggles behind the genius. Yet, while his career soared, Einstein's personal life grew strained. His marriage to Mileva Maric had become increasingly troubled. Einstein was emotionally distant, often absorbed in thought. They separated in 1914, just as he arrived in Berlin. Their two sons, Hans Albert and Eduard, remained with Mileva. The man who unraveled the mysteries of the universe struggled with the complexity of human relationships. The stage is set for a revolution. By 1915, Einstein stood at the center of the scientific world, poised to complete the greatest theory of his life. Over the next year, he would wrestle with curved space, light paths, and the structure of the cosmos itself. From a patent office in Bern to the halls of Berlin, Albert Einstein had climbed the academic mountain. But he was not seeking status, he was seeking truth. And at the top of that mountain, he would look into the universe and show us that even space and time could bend. Segment: the general theory of relativity and the birth of a scientific legend. In the heart of Berlin, between 1912 and 1915, Albert Einstein began to shape a theory that would change humanity's understanding of the universe. He called it the general theory of relativity, and it would soon become one of the greatest achievements in the history of science. From special to general, expanding the vision. Einstein had already shown in 1905 that time and space were not absolute. They were relative to the observer. But special relativity only applied to objects moving at constant speeds. It didn't include acceleration or gravity. To complete the picture, Einstein needed to take the theory further. What was gravity really? Was it a force pulling objects together, as Newton believed, or something deeper? I was sitting in a chair when the thought struck me. A man falling freely will not feel his own weight. This idea that free fall was indistinguishable from weightlessness became the principle of equivalence. It was the key to a revolutionary insight, that gravity is not a force at all, but a distortion of space and time. Gravity as curved space-time. Einstein proposed that massive objects like planets and stars actually bend the fabric of space and time around them. This curvature tells other objects how to move. Instead of thinking of gravity as an invisible force, Einstein asked us to imagine the universe as a kind of cosmic trampoline, where stars and planets created dents, and objects followed the curves in that surface. Matter tells space how to curve. Space tells matter how to move. It was bold, complex, and elegant, a complete reimagining of gravity. But proving it would not be easy. The struggle to complete the equations. For nearly 3 years, Einstein wrestled with the math. It wasn't just physics anymore. It was geometry on a cosmic scale. He worked with complex tensors, differential geometry, and the help of his mathematician friend, Marcel Grossmann. Einstein often worked day and night, skipping meals, barely sleeping, rewriting pages again and again. In November 1915, at the Prussian Academy of Sciences, he delivered a series of 4 lectures, each closer to his final theory. And on November 25th, 1915, Einstein presented the completed version of the field equations of general relativity, the mathematical heart of his theory. With trembling hands, he told a friend, "I have finally understood the mind of God." Experimental proof, a 1919 eclipse, a great theory demands great proof. Einstein's boldest prediction was this: light would bend in the presence of gravity. Stars appearing near the edge of the sun during a total eclipse would seem slightly shifted as their light curved around the sun's gravity well. But to see this, the sun had to be blacked out, and that meant waiting for a total solar eclipse. In May 1919, during an eclipse visible from the South Atlantic, British astronomer Sir Arthur Eddington led an expedition to test Einstein's prediction. The results were historic. The stars appeared shifted, just as Einstein predicted. Newton had been dethroned, and Einstein's theory was confirmed. The results were consistent and astonishing. Einstein becomes a global icon. When news of the eclipse results broke, Einstein became a household name overnight. Newspapers around the world ran headlines like, "Lights all askew in the heavens, Einstein's theory triumphs." He was celebrated not just as a physicist, but as a symbol of human genius, a man who had rewritten the laws of nature with only his mind. The irony, Einstein wasn't seeking fame. He disliked the attention, the cameras, the crowds. He wanted only one thing: to understand the universe. Fame is for the birds. I only care about the truth. Legacy of general relativity. The general theory of relativity wasn't just a milestone. It was a new map of reality. It laid the foundation for modern cosmology, black holes, gravitational waves, and even the expanding universe. Over a century later, scientists are still testing it, and it keeps passing every test. Albert Einstein didn't just reshape physics. He reshaped the universe and showed us that the deepest truths can be revealed not with machines, but with thought. Segment: Marriages and Family. The personal side of Albert Einstein. While Albert Einstein revolutionized our understanding of the universe, his personal life remained far more complex, often marked by emotional distance, heartbreak, and internal contradictions. Behind the image of the smiling genius lay a man who struggled with intimacy, a man torn between his devotion to science and the needs of those closest to him. First love and first marriage. Mileva Maric. Einstein's first great love was Mileva Maric, a brilliant and fiercely intelligent Serbian physicist. They met in 1896 at the Swiss Federal Polytechnic in Zurich, where Mileva was the only woman in Einstein's class. Their relationship was fueled by deep intellectual connection. They studied, argued, and exchanged ideas in letters filled with physics and emotion. But their relationship was complicated from the beginning. When Mileva became pregnant in 1901, before they were married, she returned to Serbia. The child, a daughter named Liesel, was born in secrecy and is believed to have died in infancy or been given up for adoption. Her fate remains unknown to this day. We must stick together for our work and for our love. Einstein to Mileva. In 1903, Albert and Mileva married in Bern, Switzerland. They later had two sons, Hans Albert Einstein, born 1904, and Eduard Einstein, born 1910. Marital strains and separation. While Einstein's scientific reputation grew, his marriage began to crumble. He was emotionally distant, often absorbed in his work, and frequently away from home. By 1912, Einstein had rekindled contact with a cousin, Elsa Lowenthal, and began a romantic relationship with her while still married to Mileva. "I treat my wife as an employee I cannot fire." Albert Einstein, private letter. In 1914, Einstein accepted a prestigious post in Berlin and moved there alone, leaving Mileva and the children behind in Zurich. The couple separated soon after, and their divorce was finalized in 1919. As part of the divorce agreement, Einstein promised to give Mileva any future Nobel Prize money, which he did when he received the prize in 1921. Second marriage, Elsa Einstein. Soon after his divorce, Einstein married Elsa, his first cousin on his mother's side and second cousin on his father's side. She had 2 daughters from a previous marriage, and the couple shared a comfortable, if distant, companionship. Elsa was fiercely protective of Einstein, managing his household and shielding him from the overwhelming attention that came with his growing fame. They never had children together, and while their marriage lacked intellectual chemistry, it provided emotional and domestic stability during the most public phase of Einstein's life. Elsa stood by Einstein through global lectures, political threats, and his eventual emigration from Germany. She remained his loyal companion until her death in 1936. Children and personal tragedy. Einstein's relationship with his children was troubled, especially with his younger son, Eduard, who was diagnosed with schizophrenia in his early 20s. Albert found it difficult to understand his son's condition and was largely absent during Eduard's decline. Eduard spent much of his life in psychiatric institutions in Switzerland. Einstein never saw him again after emigrating to the United States in 1933. His elder son, Hans Albert, became a respected engineer and professor. Their relationship was sometimes strained but improved over time. Family and genius, a complicated balance. Einstein's brilliance gave humanity a new lens through which to see the universe, but it often came at the cost of personal closeness. He was not a cruel man, but he could be cold, logical, and emotionally unavailable to those who needed warmth. What I admire in Einstein is not just his mind, but his moral complexity. Biographer Walter Isaacson. He could speak of stars, galaxies, and time warps with ease, yet found himself lost in the everyday needs of family and love. Albert Einstein was a father, a husband, a lover flawed human. His story reminds us that even those who understand the universe may struggle to navigate the heart. The man who unlocked the cosmos remained in many ways a mystery to those closest to him. Segment: Humanism, Pacifism, and Politics. The social conscience of Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein is remembered for his theories, his equations, and his genius, but behind the physicist stood a deeply moral human being, shaped by empathy, conscience, and courage. To Einstein, science was not enough. A life of the mind, he believed, must be guided by a life of principle. A lifelong humanist. Einstein was a committed humanist. He believed in the dignity of every person, regardless of race, nationality, or religion. Only a life lived for others is a life worthwhile. He supported global peace, public education, civil rights, and the well-being of the poor and oppressed. Throughout his life, Einstein lent his name and voice to humanitarian causes, often when it was unpopular or even dangerous to do so. Pacifism and anti-militarism. Having witnessed the devastation of World War I, Einstein became a committed pacifist in the 1920s. He spoke out loudly against militarism, conscription, and the glorification of war. He condemned the arms race and warned that science, if unchecked by ethics, could lead to humanity's destruction. Peace cannot be kept by force. It can only be achieved by understanding. He joined several pacifist and disarmament organizations, including the League of Nations International Committee on Intellectual Cooperation. Einstein believed that war was not just a failure of politics, but a failure of imagination, a refusal to see the humanity in the other. Opposition to fascism and Nazism. In the 1930s, Einstein's views were put to the test. The rise of Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party in Germany horrified him. Einstein, a Jew, was openly critical of the Nazi regime. His books were burned. His home was raided. His name was on a hit list. He fled Germany in 1933 and never returned. Settling in the United States, Einstein became a vocal opponent of fascism and authoritarianism. He warned of the dangers of blind nationalism, racism, and propaganda. Nationalism is an infantile disease. It is the measles of mankind. In a time of silence and fear, Einstein used his fame to speak, and he was heard. Political engagement in the United States. In America, Einstein remained politically active. He was an outspoken supporter of civil rights, aligning himself with African American leaders like Weed, Du Bois, and Paul Robeson. He publicly condemned racial segregation, calling it America's worst disease. He was also a supporter of democratic socialism, believing in a society guided by both freedom and fairness. He wrote and spoke frequently about the dangers of unregulated capitalism, the rise of McCarthyism, and the suppression of intellectual freedom. The world is a dangerous place, not because of those who do evil, but because of those who look on and do nothing. The atomic bomb and a moral dilemma. Ironically, the man who helped uncover EMC2, the equation that made nuclear energy possible, was also one of its most troubled witnesses. In 1939, fearing Nazi Germany might develop an atomic bomb, Einstein signed a letter to US President Franklin D. Roosevelt, urging the US to begin atomic research. This letter helped trigger the Manhattan Project. After the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Einstein was deeply shaken. He became one of the loudest voices against nuclear weapons, advocating for global disarmament and world government. The unleashed power of the atom has changed everything except our way of thinking. The final mission, a better world. Einstein's last years were filled with quiet reflection and global advocacy. He campaigned for peace, wrote essays on ethics and philosophy, and urged scientists to take responsibility for how their discoveries were used. Though often misunderstood, he never stopped speaking for human dignity, peaceful coexistence, and universal responsibility. I speak to everyone in the same way, whether he is the garbage man or the president of the university. Albert Einstein didn't just ask how the universe worked. He asked how we should live in it. And for him, the answer was clear. Live with compassion, live with conscience, live for others. Segment: Later Years, Death, and Legacy of Albert Einstein. By the end of World War II, Albert Einstein was no longer just a physicist. He was a global icon, a symbol of human intellect, conscience, and resistance. And yet, in his final years, Einstein turned away from fame and deeper into philosophy, reflection, and solitude. Scientific pursuits in later life. After the war, Einstein continued his search for a unified field theory, an ambitious dream to connect all the forces of nature under a single mathematical framework. He was driven by the belief that nature was governed by harmony and simplicity, that beneath quantum chaos and relativistic curves lay a deeper order. But Einstein worked in isolation. His refusal to embrace the new field of quantum mechanics with its randomness and uncertainty put him increasingly at odds with younger physicists. God does not play dice with the universe. His later scientific efforts, though passionate, never bore the fruit he hoped for. Yet his dedication never wavered. He worked every day until the end. Voice of conscience in a divided world. In the post-war years, Einstein became an even more outspoken advocate for peace. He condemned nuclear weapons, criticized McCarthyism in the United States, and supported civil rights and freedom of expression. He stood firmly against racism, militarism, and totalitarianism in all forms. I do not believe in the immortality of the individual, and I consider ethics to be an exclusively human concern. Einstein also supported the establishment of the State of Israel, but remained cautious about nationalism, warning of future conflict if justice and equality were not upheld for all people. Last public efforts and warnings. In his final act of political engagement, Einstein joined Bertrand Russell in 1955 to issue the Russell-Einstein Manifesto, urging world leaders to avoid nuclear war and resolve conflicts peacefully. Remember your humanity and forget the rest. Just days after signing it, Albert Einstein would fall ill and never recover. Einstein's death, April 18th, 1955. On April 17th, 1955, Einstein experienced internal bleeding caused by a ruptured abdominal aortic aneurysm. He refused surgery, saying, "I want to go when I want. It is tasteless to prolong life artificially." He died early the next morning at the age of 76 in Princeton Hospital. Einstein's brain was removed during autopsy for scientific study, a decision still debated today. His body was cremated and his ashes scattered at an undisclosed location in accordance with his wishes for no grave, no monument, no idol. Legacy that transcends time. Albert Einstein left behind more than equations. He left a blueprint for curiosity, a reminder that science is both a tool for discovery and a responsibility to humanity. He changed physics forever, laying the foundation for black holes, GPS technology, gravitational waves, and our understanding of the Big Bang. But perhaps even more enduring is the example he set. A refugee who stood for justice, a thinker who questioned everything, a voice of peace in an age of war. The most beautiful experience we can have is the mysterious. It is the fundamental emotion which stands at the cradle of true art and true science. Albert Einstein taught us that the universe bends, that time flows, that atoms dance, but above all, He showed us that intellect must be guided by conscience, and that the deepest truths are not in numbers alone, but in the choices we make as human beings. Thank you, friends. If you like this video, please like it, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel for more such content. Don't forget to press the bell icon so you don't miss our next video. If you found this information helpful, share it with your family and friends. Your support and love motivate us to keep improving. We'll meet again with another interesting topic. Until then, asterisk asterisk Jai Bholanath. Ha ha Mahadev.